On October 15, 1997, Bus 47 left Maple Ridge Elementary with 23 children. It never arrived at the first stop. For 27 years, the FBI, police and families searched everywhere. No one could find the bright yellow bus or the missing children. The case went cold. But Ezra Holloway, the old school janitor, never forgot the sound he heard that day. The sound of Bus 47's engine running longer than it should have. Now 27 years later, Ezra finally understands what that sound meant. And it changes everything about the biggest mystery in his town's history. What if the bus never left the school at all? And what if the missing children have been right beneath everyone's feet this whole time? Ezra Holloway's hands shook as he held the old newspaper clipping. 27 years, and the paper was yellow like old leaves. The words were faded, but he could still read them. School bus with 23 children vanishes without trace. He sat in his small apartment, looking at the same picture he looked at every October 15th, bus number 47. Mrs. Chen smiling in her driver's seat. 23 children who never made it home. Ezra was 67 now. His hair was white, and his back hurt when he got up from his chair. But he remembered that day like it happened yesterday. He was 40 then, working as a janitor at Maple Ridge Elementary School. It was the worst day of his life. The newspaper made a soft sound as he set it down on his kitchen table. Outside his window he could see yellow school buses driving by. It was 3:30 in the afternoon. Kids were going home, just like they should. But 27 years ago, 23 kids never made it home. Ezra closed his eyes and remembered. October 15th, 1997, Maple Ridge Elementary School. The school bell rang loud and clear. Children ran out of their classrooms, backpacks bouncing, voices chattering about homework and dinner and TV shows. Ezra was cleaning the hallway windows when he heard their happy sounds. "Bye, Mr. Holloway," called out Sarah Martinez, a third grader with pigtails. "See you tomorrow, Sarah," Ezra said, waving his cleaning cloth. He liked the children. They always said hello. They drew him pictures sometimes. Little stick figures of him holding his mop, with big smiles drawn on their faces. Outside, the yellow buses were lined up like big metal caterpillars. Bus 47 was third in line. Mrs. Delilah Chen sat in the driver's seat, checking her mirrors. She had been driving that bus for 20 years, never had an accident, never missed a day of work. Mrs. Chen was small and kind. She knew every child's name. She knew who had to sit in the front because they got car sick. She knew who needed help with their seat belts. She kept band-aids in her first aid kit for scraped knees. The children climbed onto bus 47 one by one. Lily Morganson got on first. She was 8 years old and very quiet. She had thick glasses that made her eyes look big. In her backpack she carried a purple notebook where she drew butterflies. Every day she drew a new butterfly head. She said butterflies were magic because they started ugly and became beautiful. Lily sat in the third row by the window. She saved the seat next to her. Tommy Vasquez climbed on next. He was 9 years old and always smiling. His mom packed him extra snacks because he liked to share with kids who forgot their lunch. Tommy was the kind of boy who helped smaller kids reach the water fountain. He sat next to Lily like he did every day. "Did you draw a new butterfly today?" Tommy asked Lily. Lily nodded and showed him her notebook. Today's butterfly was blue with silver spots. "That's the prettiest one yet," Tommy said. More children got on the bus. Jessica Wong, who was learning to play piano. David Kim, who collected baseball cards. Amy Foster, who wanted to be a teacher when she grew up. Marcus Webb got on last. He was 11, the oldest kid on the bus. Marcus was tall for his age and very quiet. He always sat in the back row. He carried comic books in his backpack, but he hid them so other kids wouldn't tease him. At home, his father was always angry. At school, Marcus felt safe. Mrs. Chen counted heads like she did every day. 23, she said out loud. Everyone here? Yes, Mrs. Chen, the children called back. Seat belts on? Yes, Mrs. Chen. Then let's go home. Mrs. Chen started the bus engine. It sounded different today, louder, more rumbly. She frowned and made a note to tell the mechanic tomorrow. Ezra was still cleaning windows when he heard the bus engine start. Something about the sound made him look up. Bus 47 was louder than usual. The engine coughed and rumbled like it was sick. But Mrs. Chen was a good driver. If she thought the bus was safe, then it was safe. Ezra went back to cleaning windows. At exactly 3:47 p.m., Bus 47 pulled away from Maple Ridge Elementary School. Ezra watched it go. The children's faces looked out the windows, some waving goodbye to friends who rode different buses. That was the last time anyone saw Bus. The first stop was supposed to be Elm Street, only 5 minutes away. Mrs. Henderson was waiting there for her daughter Katie. At 4:00 p.m. she called the school. "Where's the bus?" she asked. "It left right on time," said Mrs. Murphy, the school secretary. "It should be there any minute." But the bus never came. By 4:30 more parents were calling. By 5:00 parents were driving to the school. Their voices were scared and angry. Where are our children? Ezra was still at school finishing his work. He saw the parents in the parking lot. He saw Mrs. Murphy on the phone, talking fast and worried. He saw the principal, Mr. Davis, pacing back and forth. Something was very wrong. By 6:00 p.m., police cars filled the school parking lot. Their red and blue lights flashed like a carnival, but nobody was having fun. By 7:00 p.m., the parents were crying. By 8:00 p.m., search teams were driving every road in town. By midnight, helicopters with bright lights were flying overhead, looking for any sign of a yellow school bus. But bus 47 was gone, like it had never existed at all. Ezra stood on the school steps, watching the chaos. His janitor keys felt heavy in his pocket. Police officers ran past him. Parents hugged each other and cried. News reporters set up cameras and asked questions. "Have you seen anything unusual?" a reporter asked Ezra. "No," Ezra said quietly. "Just, the bus engine sounded different today." The reporter wasn't interested in janitor talk. She moved on to interview the principal. Ezra went home that night, but he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the children's faces in the bus windows, Lily with her butterfly notebook, Tommy with his kind smile, Marcus hiding his comic book. Where were they? Present day, October 5th. Ezra opened his eyes. The memory felt fresh, like an old wound that never healed. He looked at the newspaper clipping again. 27 years. 27 years of wondering. 27 years of guilt. Because deep down, Ezra knew he had missed something that day. Something important. The way the bus engine sounded. The way it seemed to idle longer than usual. Wait. Ezra sat up straighter in his chair. His heart started beating faster. The bus engine. It had been running longer than usual. Not just starting up, running, like it was waiting for something. "I should have noticed it sooner," Ezra whispered to the empty apartment. That sound, it was different that day. For 27 years, Ezra thought the bus had left the school at 3:47 p.m., just like always. But now, with his old man's memory playing tricks and showing him new details, he realized something else. The engine had been idling for too long. What if bus 47 had never left the school parking lot at all? The thought hit Ezra like a punch to the chest. He stood up from his kitchen chair so fast that it almost fell over. His heart was beating like a drum. For 27 years, everyone believed the bus had driven away from school. The police searched every road. The FBI looked in every forest. Search dogs followed trails that led nowhere. But what if they were all looking in the wrong places? Ezra walked to his bedroom closet. He pushed aside old coats and boxes until he found what he was looking for. A shoebox full of newspaper clippings. Every article about the missing children. Every story about the search. Every interview with crying parents. He had kept them all. October 16, 1997. The biggest search in the county's history began at sunrise. FBI agents arrived in black cars with tinted windows. Helicopters circled overhead like metal birds. Police officers knocked on every door in town. Agent Sarah Blackwood was in charge. She was tall and serious, with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had solved cases that other agents couldn't. Missing children were her specialty. "We need to talk to everyone," Agent Blackwood told the local police chief. "Teachers, parents, school workers, bus drivers. Everyone who was here yesterday." Agent Kevin Torres was her partner. He was younger and always took careful notes. Together they set up a command center in the school gym. The first person they interviewed was Principal Davis. "Mrs. Chen was our best driver," he said, wiping his glasses with shaky hands. 20 years, never an accident. Never even a speeding ticket. "Did she seem worried about anything lately?" Agent Blackwood asked. "No, nothing. She loved those children like they were her own grandchildren." Next, they talked to the other bus drivers. "Delilah's bus was making funny noises yesterday morning," said Frank Miller, who drove bus 23. "She mentioned it at lunch. Said it sounded like the engine was working too hard." "Did she say she was worried about driving it?" Agent Torres asked. "No," she said. "The mechanic would check it today. She never would have driven if she thought it was dangerous." The agents interviewed every teacher, every parent, every person who worked at the school. When they got to Ezra, he was mopping the hallway floors. His hands were shaking. "You're the janitor?" Agent Blackwood asked. "Yes, ma'am." Ezra Holloway. "Did you see anything unusual yesterday afternoon?" Ezra thought hard. The bus engine sounded different. Louder than normal. "Anything else?" "No, ma'am. I was just cleaning windows." Agent Torres wrote "Janitor," heard loud engine in his notebook. Then they moved on to the next person. Ezra felt small and useless. Just a janitor with nothing important to say. Outside, the search grew bigger every hour. Hundreds of volunteers joined the police and FBI agents. They walked through forests, calling the children's names. They searched every barn, every old building, every place a bus might hide. Search dogs were brought in from the city. German shepherds with keen noses and serious faces. They sniffed around the school parking lot where bus 47 had been parked. The dogs followed a scent trail from the bus loading zone. But the trail stopped at the edge of the parking lot. Just stopped, like the bus had disappeared into thin air. "That's impossible," said the dog handler. "Scents don't just vanish." Helicopters with heat sensors flew over every inch of the county. They looked for any sign of the bright yellow bus. Yellow was easy to spot from the air, especially against the brown and green of October wood. They found nothing. Local airports checked every plane that had taken off. Train stations looked at every ticket sold. Gas stations studied their security cameras. Nobody had seen. The families were going crazy with worry. Rebecca Morganson, Lily's mother, hadn't slept since Tuesday. She worked 2 jobs to support herself and Lily, cleaning offices at night and stocking shelves during the day. She was tired all the time, but she loved her quiet daughter with the thick glasses. "Lily drew me a butterfly yesterday morning," Rebecca told Agent Blackwood through her tears. "She left it on the kitchen table before school. She always draws me pictures." Rebecca showed the agent Lily's latest drawing, a purple butterfly with silver wings. At the bottom, in careful 8-year-old handwriting, it said, "For Mommy. Love." She wanted to be an artist when she grew up, Rebecca whispered. Carlos and Maria Vasquez were at the school every day, helping with the search. Carlos owned a small restaurant in town. Maria worked at the library. They were saving money to buy Tommy the bicycle he wanted for Christmas. "Tommy helps everyone," Maria told the searchers. If another kid dropped their lunch, Tommy would share his sandwich. If someone was crying, Tommy would sit with them. "He's going to be a teacher someday," Carlos added, "or maybe a doctor. He wants to help people." Eleanor Webb was 72 years old. She had raised her grandson Marcus since he was 3, after his parents died in a car accident. Marcus was quiet and serious, but Eleanor knew he had a kind heart. "He reads comic books," Eleanor told Agent Torres. "Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. He says he wants to be a hero someday, like them." "Does he have any friends?" the agent asked. Eleanor's face fell. "He's shy. His father, before the accident, there was a lot of yelling in that house. Marcus doesn't trust easily, but he's a good boy. He just needs time to feel safe." Days turned into weeks. The search continued, but hope was fading. The FBI brought in their best experts, crime scene investigators who could find clues invisible to normal eyes, computer experts who could track phone calls and credit cards, psychologists who understood how kidnappers think. They found nothing. No ransom demands, no witnesses, no tire tracks beyond the school parking lot, no credit card purchases by Mrs. Chen after Tuesday afternoon. It was like Bus 47 and 24 people had simply vanished from the earth. "This doesn't make sense," Agent Blackwood told her team. "Buses don't disappear. They're huge. They're bright yellow. Someone should have seen something." The local news ran stories every night. Still no sign of missing school bus. FBI expands search area. Families plead for information. Reporters interviewed anyone who would talk to them. "The children are still alive," Rebecca Morganson told Channel 7 News. "I know Lily is still alive. A mother knows these things." But as October turned to November, even the reporters started to leave. November 15th. The command center in the school gym was being taken down. Agents packed up their computers and files. The helicopters stopped flying. Most of the volunteers went back to their normal lives. Agent Blackwood held one last meeting with the families. "We're not giving up," she promised them. "This case will stay open. If any new information comes in, we'll investigate immediately." But everyone knew the truth. After a month with no clues, the chances of finding the children alive were almost zero. Rebecca Morganson went home to Lily's empty bedroom. She left everything exactly as it was. Lily's butterfly drawings on the walls, her books on the nightstand, her favorite stuffed rabbit on the pillow. Carlos Vasquez started drinking more. Maria tried to be strong, but she cried every night. They had bought Tommy's Christmas bicycle before he disappeared. It sat in their garage, still in the box, gathering dust. Eleanor Webb kept Marcus's comic books on his bedroom shelf. She read them sometimes, trying to understand what he had loved about superheroes. The school district retired Bus 47's number forever. No other bus would ever be called 47 again. Maple Ridge Elementary tried to return to normal, but it was impossible. Teachers jumped every time they heard a bus engine. Children asked when their friends were coming back to school. Ezra kept working, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. Every afternoon at 3:47, he would stop whatever he was doing and listen for bus engines. The sound always made him feel sick. He should have paid more attention that day. He should have noticed something was wrong. But what could a janitor have done? Present day, October 5th. Ezra sat on his bed, surrounded by newspaper clippings. 27 years of searching. 27 years of no new leads. He picked up the first article again. There was Agent Blackwood, looking young and determined. "We will find these children," she had promised, but they never did. Ezra's hands shook as he read the details he had memorized long ago. The search dogs losing the scent at the parking lot edge. The helicopters finding nothing. The complete lack of witnesses. That engine sound, he whispered to himself. He closed his eyes and tried to remember exactly what he had heard that day. Bus 47's engine, starting up. Running, but not moving. Not moving. His eyes snapped open. It wasn't leaving, he said out loud to his empty apartment. It was idling. For too long. The sound hadn't been a bus driving away. It had been a bus sitting still, engine running, waiting for something. But waiting for what? And if the bus hadn't left the school parking lot, where had it gone? The question kept Ezra awake all night. He paced around his small apartment, thinking. When morning came, he was still thinking. But first, he needed to understand what had happened to everyone else. The families, the town, the people who had spent 27 years living with the mystery. Because Ezra wasn't the only one whose life had been changed forever that day. The town that couldn't heal, Maple Ridge, was never the same. After October 5th, parents stopped letting their children walk to school alone. Yellow school buses made people nervous. Every time a child was 5 minutes late coming home, mothers would panic and call the police. The elementary school tried to keep going, but it was hard. Teachers would look at empty desks and remember the children who used to sit there. The art room still had Lily's butterfly drawings pinned to the bulletin board. The library kept Tommy's favorite books on a special shelf. Parents started driving their children to school instead of using the buses. Enrollment dropped as families moved away, unable to live with the constant reminders. In 2003, 6 years after the disappearance, Maple Ridge Elementary closed forever. There weren't enough students left. The building sat empty for years, windows broken, paint peeling, weeds growing in the playground. In 2010, they finally tore it down. But even after the building was gone, people avoided that corner. There was something sad about the empty lot where children used to play. Rebecca Morganson, the mother who never gave up. Rebecca never moved away from Maple Ridge. She couldn't leave, because what if Lily came home and couldn't find her? She kept Lily's bedroom exactly the same for 27 years. The butterfly drawings on the walls, the purple notebook on the desk, the stuffed rabbit on the bed, waiting for Lily to come home and hug it. Rebecca never married. She went on a few dates over the years, but it never felt right. How could she explain that half her heart was still missing? Every October 15th she would sit in Lily's room and look through photo albums. Lily, as a baby, taking her first steps. Lily starting kindergarten, nervous but excited. Lily drawing her first butterfly, tongue sticking out in concentration. "I should have picked you up that day," Rebecca would whisper to the photos. "I should have been there." Rebecca started the Lily Morganson Foundation for Missing Children in 2005. She raised money to help other families search for their lost children. She spoke at conferences and wrote letters to senators, asking for better laws to protect kids. But she never declared Lily legally dead. The lawyers said it would be easier for insurance and paperwork. Rebecca said no. "She's not dead," Rebecca would tell them. "She's just lost. And lost children can be found." Even now, at 62 years old, Rebecca still hoped. Every knock at the door made her heart race. Every phone call might be the one that brought Lily home. The Vasquez family, broken by guilt. Carlos Vasquez never forgave himself. "I was supposed to pick him up that day," he would tell anyone who would listen. Tommy had a dentist appointment at 4:30. "I was going to leave work early and get him from school, But then a big order came in at the restaurant, and I thought, the bus is faster, I'll pick him up after his dental appointment. But Tommy never made it to the dentist. Carlos started drinking heavily. First just beer after work, then whiskey during work, then whiskey instead of work. Maria tried to help him, but grief made people do crazy things. Carlos would drive around town at night, looking for yellow school buses. He would follow them, hoping one might be bus 47. The police stopped him several times for reckless driving. He's out there somewhere, Carlos would tell Maria through his tears. Tommy's out there, and he's waiting for his daddy to find him. In 2002, Maria left Carlos. She couldn't watch him destroy himself anymore. She moved to Phoenix, Arizona, where the desert sunshine felt nothing like the cloudy skies of Maple Ridge. Carlos died in 2015 from liver disease. He was only 58 years old. Maria came back for the funeral. She stood at his grave and forgave him, that it was 18 years too late. Maria still lived in Phoenix. Every year on October 15th she would call the Maple Ridge Police Department. "Any news about the school bus?" she would ask. "No, ma'am. Sorry. We'll call you if anything changes." But nothing ever changed. Tommy's bicycle was still in Maria's garage in Phoenix. She had taken it with her when she moved, unable to throw it away. Sometimes she would sit next to it and remember her kind, generous boy who shared his snacks and helped smaller children. Eleanor Webb, the grandmother who died waiting. Eleanor Webb lived until she was 89 years old. She died in 2005, 8 years after Marcus disappeared. For those 8 years, she kept his room ready, his comic books organized by date, his school clothes washed and folded, his favorite Superman pajamas on the pillow. Every day, Eleanor would read one of Marcus's comic books. She had never liked them before, too much fighting and noise. But reading them made her feel close to her grandson. He loved the stories where the hero saved people, Eleanor told her neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. Superman saving a falling airplane. Batman stopping bank robbers. Marcus said he wanted to be a hero too. Eleanor was the only person who really understood Marcus. His parents had died when he was little. Before that, his father had been angry and mean. Marcus came to live with Eleanor, scared and quiet. But Eleanor was patient. She read him bedtime stories. She taught him to make cookies. She listened when he talked about school bullies and helped him practice being brave. Marcus was a good boy. Eleanor would tell the social workers who checked on them. He just needed time to trust people again. After Marcus disappeared, Eleanor would sit in his room every evening and read his comic books out loud, as if he might be listening somehow. "Today Superman saved a kitten from a tree," she would say to the empty room, "and Batman caught the bad guys who were stealing from old ladies. Just like you would do, Marcus. You always helped people who needed help." Eleanor died peacefully in her sleep on a Tuesday morning in March. Mrs. Patterson found her 2 days later sitting in Marcus's room with a Superman comic book in her lap. At Eleanor's funeral there were only 12 people. Most of Marcus's family had died or moved away. The comic books were donated to the library, but nobody ever checked them out. They sat on the shelf, waiting for a boy who would never come home to read them. The Holloway family, guilt and survival. But Ezra wasn't the only Holloway affected by that terrible day. His daughter Jenny was supposed to be on bus. Jenny was 8 years old in 1997, the same age as Lily Morganson. She rode bus 47 every day, sitting 2 rows behind Tommy and Lily. She was shy like Lily but loved to draw pictures of horses instead of butterflies. On October 15, 1997, Jenny stayed after school for art club. Mrs. Rodriguez, the art teacher, was helping students make Halloween decorations. Jenny was painting a pumpkin orange when she heard the buses leaving.
"Oh no,"
Jenny said, her paintbrush dripping. "I missed my bus." "Don't worry," Mrs. Rodriguez said. "I'll call your father to come pick you up." Ezra got the call while he was mopping the cafeteria floor. "Jenny missed her bus," Mrs. Rodriguez told him. "Can you drive her home when you're done with work?" "Of course," Ezra said. "Tell her I'll be there in an hour." 1 hour. If Jenny had left 1 hour earlier, she would have been on bus 47 with Lily and Tommy and Marcus. For the rest of her childhood, Jenny couldn't understand why she was saved when her friends weren't. She stopped drawing. She stopped talking to other children. She was afraid that if she got too close to people, they might disappear too. "Why me?" Jenny would ask her father. "Why didn't I disappear with everyone else?" Ezra never knew how to answer. Jenny struggled through middle school and high school. She had panic attacks when she heard school bells ring. She couldn't ride in any kind of bus, not even city buses. She would walk miles rather than get on a bus. When Jenny turned 18, she moved across the country to Seattle. She said she needed to get away from all the memories. Ezra understood, but it hurt. First the missing children, then his daughter running away from home. Jenny became a computer programmer. She worked alone in her apartment, talking to people only through email and text messages. She was good at her job, but she never made close friends. She called Ezra once a month, but they never talked about the past. Never talked about October 15th. Never talked about the children who disappeared. Jenny was 35 now. Still unmarried. Still living alone. Still afraid to get too close to people. The guilt of surviving had poisoned her whole life. Ezra's secret. Ezra had spent 27 years carrying his own guilt. After the children disappeared, he couldn't work around kids anymore. Every child's voice reminded him of Lily and Tommy and Marcus. Every school bell made him think of that terrible afternoon. He retired early in 2002, when he was only 45. The school district understood. Everyone in Maple Ridge was traumatized. But Ezra didn't really retire. He just changed jobs. He started working as a volunteer at the food bank. He delivered meals to elderly people who couldn't leave their homes. He fixed broken fences for single mothers who couldn't afford handymen. Ezra never told anyone, but he was trying to make up for failing the children. Every person he helped was like a prayer for Lily and Tommy and Marcus. He kept newspaper clippings of every anniversary story, every false lead, every family's plea for answers. He had a whole closet full of articles about the missing children. Sometimes people in town would see him at the grocery store or the post office. They would nod politely, but not really talk. Everyone knew Ezra Holloway was the janitor who was there the day the children disappeared. Some people thought he might have seen something important. Others thought he was just a sad old man who couldn't let go of the past. Both things were true. Present day, the weight of memory. Now Ezra sat in his apartment, surrounded by 27 years of questions. What if he had paid more attention to that engine sound? What if he had walked outside to check on the bus? What if he had noticed something was wrong? But now, for the first time in 27 years, Ezra had a new idea. The bus engine had been idling, not driving away, idling. If bus 47 hadn't left the school parking lot, where could it have gone? Ezra stood up and walked to his kitchen window. He could see the empty lot where Maple Ridge Elementary used to stand. It was a shopping center now, with a grocery store and a pizza place and a dry cleaner. But Ezra remembered what used to be there. He remembered every building, every sidewalk, every tunnel. His heart started beating faster. The maintenance tunnels, the underground tunnels that connected the school to the heating plant and the old buildings downtown. Ezra had worked in those tunnels sometimes, fixing pipes and checking electrical wires. They were dark and narrow, but they went everywhere under the town. What if someone had used the tunnels? What if bus 47 hadn't driven away at all, but had been hidden somewhere underground? For the first time in 27 years, Ezra Holloway had hope, and he was going to find out if he was right. Ezra didn't sleep that night. He sat at his kitchen table, drawing maps on old napkins, maps of the school as he remembered it, maps of the underground tunnels, maps of where a school bus might hide. By morning he knew what he had to do. At 8:00 a.m. he called the police station. "Maple Ridge Police, this is Officer Johnson. I need to talk to someone about the missing school bus," Ezra said. There was a long pause. "Sir, can I get your name?" "Ezra Holloway. I was the janitor at the school when it happened." Another pause. "Hold on, sir." A few minutes later, a different voice came on the phone. "Mr. Holloway, this is Detective Meredith Santos. I understand you have information about the school bus case." Detective Santos was new to Maple Ridge. She had moved there from the city 5 years ago. She was 38 years old, smart and careful. She had heard about the missing bus, but it was before her time. "I think I know where the bus might be," Ezra said. Detective Santos sighed quietly. Every year on October 15th she got calls like this. People who thought they had solved the mystery. People who meant well, but had crazy ideas. "Mr. Holloway, that case has been investigated by the FBI and state police. Every possible lead has been checked, but they didn't know about the tunnels," Ezra said. "What tunnels?" Ezra tried to explain about the underground maintenance tunnels, about how the bus engine had been idling longer than normal, about how the scent trail had stopped at the parking lot edge. Detective Santos listened politely, but Ezra could tell she didn't believe him. "Mr. Holloway, I appreciate you calling. If you have any real evidence, please bring it to the station." Real evidence? Ezra didn't have real evidence. He just had a feeling, a memory of an engine sound that was wrong. After Detective Santos hung up, Ezra sat in his kitchen feeling foolish. Maybe he was just a sad old man who couldn't let go of the past. But then he remembered Lily's butterfly drawings, Tommy's kind smile, Marcus hiding his comic book. Those children deserved better than a dismissed phone call. Ezra decided to investigate by himself. Back to where it all started. The shopping center where Maple Ridge Elementary used to stand was busy with morning shoppers. Cars filled the parking lot. People hurried in and out of stores carrying grocery bags and dry cleaning. Nobody remembered that 23 children had once played on this exact spot. Ezra parked his old truck and walked around the shopping center. He tried to picture where everything used to be. The main school building had been where the grocery store was now. The cafeteria was under the pizza place. The bus loading zone was where people parked their cars. But where were the maintenance buildings? Ezra walked behind the shopping center, past the dumpsters and delivery trucks. There, hidden behind a fence, he found something that made his heart race. A small brick building with a metal door. It looked abandoned, covered with weeds and graffiti. But Ezra recognized it. It was the old school maintenance building. Somehow, the construction company had missed it when they built the shopping center. Maybe it was too expensive to tear down. Maybe they forgot it was there, but it was still standing. 27 years later.
Ezra walked around the building, looking for a way in. The windows were boarded up. The main door was chained shut.
But on the back side, hidden by overgrown bushes, there was a smaller door. The lock was rusted and broken. Ezra pushed the door open and stepped inside. Inside the forgotten building. The maintenance building smelled like old motor oil and dust. Sunlight came through cracks in the boarded windows, making strange shadows on the walls. Ezra had worked in this building for 7 years. He knew every corner, every tool rack, every filing cabinet. It looked exactly the same as the day he left, but covered with 27 years of dust and spider webs. His footsteps echoed as he walked across the concrete floor. In the corner, he found what he was looking for. His old desk, his old filing cabinets, his old maintenance logs. The desk drawers were stuck from years of dampness, but Ezra managed to pull them open. Inside were yellowed papers, rusty paper clips, and dried-up pens. But in the bottom drawer, wrapped in a plastic bag to protect it from moisture, was his maintenance logbook from night. Ezra's hands shook as he opened it. The pages were filled with his own handwriting. Daily reports about broken lights, clogged toilets, squeaky doors. The normal problems of running a school. He flipped to October 15th. There, in his neat handwriting, was an entry that made him gasp. Bustini 47. Engine trouble reported morning of 10:15. Temporary repair made, scheduled for full service. Ezra stared at the words. He had completely forgotten. Mrs. Chen had complained about the bus engine that morning. She said it was making strange noises. Ezra had looked at it during his lunch break and found a loose connection in the exhaust system. He fixed it temporarily with wire and clamps, but it needed proper repair. That's why the engine had sounded different that afternoon. That's why it was louder than normal. But there was something else written in the margin, in pencil so faded he could barely read it. Tunnel access door. Lock broken. Repair scheduled. The tunnel access door. The entrance to the underground maintenance tunnels was right next to the bus loading zone, and on October 15th, 1997, the lock had been broken. Ezra felt dizzy. He sat down on an old work stool and tried to think. Someone could have used the broken tunnel entrance. Someone could have led the children underground while Mrs. Chen tried to fix the bus problem. Someone could have, but who? And why? The blueprints. Ezra searched through more filing cabinets until he found what he needed. The original blueprints of the school's underground tunnel system. The blueprints were huge sheets of blue paper with white lines showing where every tunnel went. Ezra spread them out on his old workbench and studied them carefully. The main tunnel started at the school and went east toward downtown Maple Ridge. There were smaller tunnels that branched off like tree branches. Some went to the heating plant. Some went to the old library. Some went to buildings that didn't exist anymore. But one tunnel went somewhere very interesting. The tunnel map showed a connection to a building labeled Morrison Estate, private residence. Ezra knew that name. Harrison Morrison was a rich businessman who owned a lot of property in Maple Ridge. But Ezra had never worked on his house. Rich people had their own maintenance crews. Why would there be a tunnel from the school to Morrison's house? Ezra looked more closely at the blueprints. In small print at the bottom, he found the answer. Emergency evacuation route, installed 1962 during Cold War construction. During the Cold War, people were scared of nuclear bombs. Some schools and government buildings had underground tunnels built so people could escape if there was an attack. The tunnel to Morrison's estate was supposed to be an emergency exit, but it had probably been forgotten over the years. Like so many Cold War preparations, what if someone had remembered it? What if someone had used it? A terrible discovery. In the corner of the maintenance building, Ezra found an old cardboard box that had fallen behind a filing cabinet. Inside the box were work orders, repair requests, and supply lists from. At the bottom of the box, wedged between two moldy folders, was something that made Ezra's blood turn cold. A child's drawing. It was done in purple crayon on white construction paper. A butterfly with detailed wings and curly antennae. In the bottom corner, in careful 8-year-old handwriting, it said, Lily Morgan's. But how had Lily's drawing gotten into the maintenance building? Children weren't allowed in there. It was full of dangerous tools and chemicals. Unless Lily had been in the maintenance building on October 5th. Ezra's hands shook as he held the drawing. After 27 years, he had found the first real clue about what had happened to the missing children. They had been in the maintenance building. They had been led through the broken tunnel entrance. Someone had taken them underground, but who? And where had they gone after that? Ezra carefully folded Lily's butterfly drawing and put it in his pocket. Then he rolled up the tunnel blueprints and tucked them under his arm. It was time to call Detective Santos again. This time, he had real evidence. But first, he needed to check one more thing. The tunnel entrance itself. The broken door behind the maintenance building, hidden by 27 years of weeds and vines. Ezra found a metal door set into the ground like a storm cellar entrance. The door was painted green, but the paint was peeling and rusty. There was a heavy lock on it, but just like his maintenance log had said, the lock was broken. It looked like it had been cut with bolt cutters. Ezra pulled the heavy door open. It creaked on rusty hinges, but it moved. Below the door was a concrete stairway, leading down into darkness. The air that came up from the tunnel smelled stale and old, like a basement that had been closed for years. Ezra didn't have a flashlight, but he used his cell phone's light to look down the stairs. The stairway went down about 10 feet, then turned left into a tunnel. He could see just far enough to make out concrete walls and a low ceiling. The tunnel was big enough for an adult to walk through, but they would have to duck their head. It was big enough for children to walk through easily. Ezra's phone battery was running low, so he closed the tunnel door and stepped back. Now he knew for sure. Someone had used this tunnel entrance on October 15, 1997. Someone had led 23 children and Mrs. Chen down into the underground tunnels, but the tunnels went for miles under Maple Ridge. The children could have been taken anywhere. Ezra thought about the blueprint he had found. The tunnel that led to Morrison's estate. Harrison Morrison, the rich businessman. Ezra needed to learn more about Harrison Morrison, and he needed to find out if that tunnel really led to his house. But first, he was going to call Detective Santos and show her Lily's butterfly drawing. This time she would have to listen. This time he had proof that the children had been at the school longer than anyone had realized. They hadn't disappeared instantly. They had been taken underground, one step at a time, into the dark tunnels beneath Maple Ridge. And somewhere in those tunnels, Ezra was going to find the truth about what had happened 27 years ago. But first, he needed help. Ezra drove straight to the police station. Lily's butterfly drawing in his shirt pocket and the tunnel blueprints on his passenger seat. His hands were shaking with excitement and fear. Detective Santos was eating lunch at her desk when Ezra walked in. "Mr. Holloway," she said, looking surprised. "I wasn't expecting to see you again so soon." "I found something," Ezra said. He pulled out Lily's drawing and placed it carefully on her desk. Detective Santos looked at the purple butterfly. She saw the neat handwriting that said Lily M. Her sandwich suddenly didn't taste good anymore. "Where did you find this?" she asked quietly. "In the old maintenance building behind the shopping center. The building where I used to work." Ezra spread out the tunnel blueprints. "Detective Santos, there are tunnels under the whole town, tunnels that nobody remembers. And on the day the children disappeared, the tunnel entrance was broken." Detective Santos studied the blueprints and the drawing. For the first time, she started to believe that maybe Ezra Holloway wasn't just another anniversary caller. "Mr. Holloway, I need you to show me exactly where you found this." Following the map. An hour later, Detective Santos followed Ezra to the maintenance building. She brought a flashlight, a camera, and an evidence bag for Lily's drawing. "The building has been abandoned since the school closed," Ezra explained as they walked around back. "I don't think anyone has been inside for years." He showed her the tunnel entrance with the broken lock. Detective Santos took pictures of everything. The rusty door, the concrete stairs, the dark tunnel beyond. "This connects to other buildings?" she asked. "According to the blueprints, Yes. The tunnels go all over town. They were built during the Cold War, in case of emergencies. Detective Santos shined her flashlight down into the tunnel. The beam showed concrete walls and a path that disappeared into darkness. Mr. Holloway, I'm going to need backup before we go down there, and I'm going to need to call the FBI. If you're right about this, she paused. If you're right, this changes everything. Learning about Harrison Morris. While they waited for backup officers, Detective Santos and Ezra went to the library to research Harrison Morrison. The librarian, Mrs. Patterson, was the same age as Ezra. She remembered Morrison well. Oh yes, Harrison Morrison, she said when they asked. He owned half the buildings in downtown Maple Ridge back in the 1990s. Very wealthy man. Very private. What was he like? Detective Santos asked. Mrs. Patterson looked uncomfortable. Well, I probably shouldn't speak ill of anyone, but there were rumors. What kind of rumors? He was involved with the school board for a while, always volunteering to help with school events. But some parents complained that he paid too much attention to the children, asked too many personal questions, took too many pictures. Ezra felt sick. What happened to those complaints? Nothing, officially. Morrison had expensive lawyers, and he donated a lot of money to the school. The principal didn't want to upset him. Mrs. Patterson pulled out old newspapers from 1995. But look here. There was an investigation. The headline read, "Local businessman questioned in inappropriate contact case." The article was short and careful with its words. It said Morrison had been questioned by police about allegations involving local minors, but charges were never filed due to insufficient evidence. He left town right after the children disappeared. Mrs. Patterson continued, sold his house in 1998 and moved away. People said he went to live in another state. Detective Santos took notes on everything. Do you know who bought his property? A development company. They tore down the main house, but kept some of the outbuildings. It's Riverside Memorial Park now. Ezra looked up from the newspaper. Memorial Park? You mean where people go to remember loved ones who died? Yes, it's very peaceful. Lots of families go there to visit graves and think about people they've lost. The irony made Ezra feel dizzy. The missing children's families might have visited a memorial park that was built on the property of the man who took their children. Jenny comes home. That evening, Ezra called his daughter Jenny in Seattle. Dad? Jenny sounded surprised. They usually only talked on holidays. Is everything okay? Jenny, I need to tell you something. About the day you missed the bus. There was a long silence. Jenny never talked about that day. It was too painful. I think I found something, Ezra continued. Something about where the children went. Dad, don't do this to yourself. That was 27 years ago. We found one of Lily's drawings, Jenny, in a place where she should never have. Jenny's voice changed. What do you mean? Ezra told her about the tunnels, the broken lock, Harrison Morrison, everything he had discovered in the past 2 days. I need your help, he said finally. You knew those children. You were supposed to be with them. Maybe you remember something that could help. Jenny was quiet for a long time. I'll catch the next flight, she said finally. I should have come home years ago. Underground exploration. The next morning, Detective Santos returned with FBI agent Kevin Torres. He was older now, with grey hair and tired eyes. He had been one of the original investigators in... I remember you, Agent Torres told Ezra. You were the janitor who heard the loud engine. Yes, sir, but I should have paid more attention. We all should have paid more attention to a lot of things, Agent Torres said sadly. This case has haunted me for 27 years. The team included Detective Santos, Agent Torres, 2 backup officers, and a crime scene photographer. They had flashlights, cameras, and equipment to test for fingerprints or DNA. Ezra led them to the tunnel entrance behind the maintenance building. "I'm staying up here," Detective Santos told Ezra. This could be dangerous, but Agent Torres looked at the blueprints Ezra had found. "Actually, we need him with us. He knows this tunnel system better than anyone." They descended the concrete stairs into the underground darkness. The tunnel was just as Ezra remembered from the blueprints. Concrete walls, low ceiling, electrical wires running along the top. Their flashlights created moving shadows that danced on the walls. After walking for 10 minutes, they came to a junction where the tunnel split into 3 directions. "Which way goes to Morrison's property?" Agent Torres asked. Ezra checked the blueprints with his flashlight. "That way," he pointed to the right tunnel. "About half a mile." As they walked through the right tunnel, the crime scene photographer found something that made everyone stop. "There's something on the wall here," she said. Agent Torres shined his bright flashlight on the concrete wall. There, carved into the surface with something sharp, were letters and numbers. "LM por TV, A Friends Forever. Lily Morganson and Tommy Vasquez," Ezra whispered. Below that, in different handwriting, someone had carved "MW was here too. Marcus Webb." The 3 children had been in this tunnel together. "When do you think this was carved?" Detective Santos asked. The photographer took pictures from every angle. "Hard to say exactly, but this concrete looks old. These markings could be decades old." They kept walking. The tunnel seemed to go on forever, but finally they saw light ahead. Not sunlight, but artificial light, coming from somewhere above. The tunnel ended at another concrete stairway leading upward. At the top was a metal door slightly open, letting in the light. Agent Torres climbed the stairs first, his gun drawn. The door opened into what looked like a basement storage room. There were old boxes, unused furniture, and maintenance equipment. "Where are we?" Detective Santos asked. Ezra checked the blueprints again. "According to this, we should be under the Morrison estate, or what used to be the Morrison estate." They climbed a second set of stairs and found themselves in a larger basement. This basement had been used recently. There were modern light bulbs, clean floors, and organized storage areas. "This isn't abandoned," Agent Torres said. "Someone's been taking care of this place." They found another stairway that led to the ground level. When they opened the door at the top, they were standing in Riverside Memorial Park. The basement they had just left was under a small brick building that looked like a maintenance shed for the park, but it was much bigger underground than it appeared above ground. Morrison's estate was torn down, Detective Santos said, but the basement levels were kept and turned into park maintenance facilities. Ezra looked around the peaceful memorial park. Families came here to remember loved ones. Children played on the swings while parents sat on benches, thinking about people they missed. The missing children of Maple Ridge might have been brought right here 27 years ago. "We need to search every inch of this basement," Agent Torres said. "If the children were brought here..." He didn't finish the sentence, but everyone knew what he meant. If the children were brought here, this might be where their story ended. Jenny arrives. That afternoon, Jenny Holloway arrived at the Maple Ridge Airport. She hadn't been home in 17 years. The town looked smaller and sadder than she remembered. Ezra picked her up in his old truck. Jenny was 35 now, but she still looked like the scared 8-year-old who had missed the bus that terrible day. "I've been thinking about what you told me," Jenny said as they drove through town. "About Morrison and the tunnels. Do you remember him, Morrison?" "I think so. There was a man who used to come to school events. He always had a fancy camera and took lots of pictures of us. Some of the teachers thought it was weird, but he gave money to the school so nobody said anything." Jenny looked out the window at the shopping center where her elementary school used to be. "I remember that he talked to me once. At the spring carnival in 1997, a few months before everything happened." "What did he say?" "He asked me which bus I rode home. He said he was interested in school transportation safety. I told him I rode bus 47 with Lily and Tommy and Marcus. Ezra's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Morrison had been planning. He had been gathering information about which children rode which buses. Jenny, I need to ask you something difficult. Do you remember anything else about that day? October 15th? Anything at all that seemed strange? Jenny was quiet for a long time. I remember being in art club, painting my pumpkin, and I remember Mrs. Rodriguez getting a phone call. What kind of phone call? Someone called the art room and said there was a problem with bus 47. They said the children needed to wait inside while the bus was being fixed. Mrs. Rodriguez thought it was weird because usually the office would call about bus problems. Ezra felt his heart racing. Who called? I don't know. Mrs. Rodriguez just said okay and hung up. But she seemed confused. Jenny, this is important. What time was this? Right when school ended. Around 3:45. I remember because that's when I realized I had missed my bus. 3:45 p.m. Someone had called the art room at 3:45 telling the teacher that bus 47 had problems, but Ezra's maintenance log showed that he had already fixed the bus engine earlier that day. Someone had lied about the bus having problems. Someone had wanted to keep the children at school longer. Someone had been getting ready to take them underground. That night, Ezra couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Jenny's memory of the phone call. Someone had planned everything perfectly. The fake emergency, the broken tunnel lock, the underground path to Morrison's property. But they still didn't know what had happened to the children after they reached the basement under the memorial park. The next morning, Agent Torres called with news. We got a search warrant for the entire basement facility, he told Ezra over the phone. We're bringing in a full crime scene team. Ground-penetrating radar, DNA specialists, everything. If there's evidence down there, we'll find it. Can I be there? Ezra asked. Yes. You know these tunnels better than anyone. We need your help. The search team. Riverside Memorial Park was closed to the public that morning. Police cars and FBI vans surrounded the small brick building that hid the extensive basement below. The crime scene team had equipment that looked like it came from a science fiction movie. Machines that could see through walls, lights that made invisible fingerprints glow, chemicals that could find blood that was decades old. Ezra met Jenny at the park entrance. She looked nervous but determined. I should have been with them, she said quietly, looking at the innocent-looking brick building. Don't think like that, Ezra told his daughter. You being safe was the only good thing that came out of that day. Detective Santos briefed the team before they went underground. We're looking for any evidence of what happened to 23 children and their bus driver 27 years ago. Personal belongings, signs of struggle, anything that tells us their story. Agent Torres added, this basement has been maintained as part of the memorial park, but the deeper levels might be original to Morrison's estate. That's where we'll focus our search. Going deeper. The basement facility was much larger than it had appeared the day before. With proper lighting, they could see that it extended in multiple directions underground. The upper level was clearly modern park maintenance, lawn mowers, gardening tools, supplies for maintaining the memorial gardens above. But there was a third staircase leading even deeper underground. This wasn't on the original blueprints, Ezra said, studying his tunnel maps. Morrison must have expanded the basement after the tunnels were built. Agent Torres replied. Rich people often added private bunkers or safe rooms to their properties. The deeper basement was different, older. The walls were made of rough stone instead of smooth concrete. The air smelled stale and cold, like a cave that had been sealed for years. The crime scene photographer's flash lit up the darkness as the team moved carefully through the underground chambers. In the first room, they found something that made everyone stop breathing. Children's belongings. A small backpack with Tommy V written on the name tag in a mother's careful handwriting. A pair of thick glasses, one lens cracked. A comic book with a bent cover showing Superman flying through clouds. Marcus's comic book, Ezra whispered. Eleanor said he always carried Superman comics. In the corner of the room they found more heartbreaking evidence. A purple notebook, its pages water-damaged but still readable. Page after page of butterfly drawings in crayon and colored pencil. Lily's notebook, the one she carried everywhere. Jenny started crying. They were here. They were really here. But these were just belongings. Where were the children themselves? Mrs. Chen's last stand. In the second underground room they found evidence of what had happened to Mrs. Delilah Chen. The crime scene team's special lights revealed old bloodstains on the stone floor. DNA testing would take weeks, but Agent Torres had seen enough crime scenes to know what they were looking at. She fought, he said quietly. She tried to protect them. Near the bloodstains they found Mrs. Chen's bus driver badge and a piece of paper, protected in a plastic evidence bag that the FBI team had brought. Agent Torres carefully opened the bag with sterile tweezers. Inside was a handwritten note in Mrs. Chen's neat writing. To whoever finds this, I tried to keep them safe. The children were brave. I told them they were heroes for staying calm. I sang them to sleep when they were scared. Please tell their families they were not afraid at the end. Delilah Chen. The room was silent except for the sound of Jenny crying. Mrs. Chen had known she was going to die, but her last thoughts had been about comforting the children and making sure their families would know they hadn't suffered. She was a hero, Detective Santos said softly. The children's prison. The third room was the largest and the most heartbreaking. It had been set up as a living space. Old mattresses on the floor. A small table with plastic cups and plates. Boxes of crackers and canned food, some still unopened after 27 years. The children had been kept alive here for some time. On the walls they found messages carved into the stone with whatever sharp objects the children could find. Nails, pieces of broken glass, metal fragments. Day 1, we miss home. Day 5, Tommy shared his crackers with everyone. Day 12, Mrs. Chen sang us songs. Day 20, Lily drew butterflies on the wall to make it prettier. Day 35, we made a plan to be brave. The crime scene photographer documented every message, every drawing, every sign of the children's struggle to survive. In one corner, they found a calendar that Lily had scratched into the wall. Little marks counting days. The marks went up 43 days. The children had survived underground for over a month, while the world searched for them above. How did they survive that long? Jenny asked. Agent Torres pointed to the supplies. Morrison kept them alive. The question is why? Morrison's journal. In a locked metal cabinet, the crime scene team found Harrison Morrison's personal journal from 19. The journal entries revealed the mind of a very sick man. October 15, 1997. The plan worked perfectly. Dale helped me get them all underground while the bus broke down. The children trust adults. So easy to lead them to safety during an emergency. October 20, 1997. The search is getting bigger. Helicopters everywhere. Had to eliminate the bus driver. She was asking too many questions. The children think she went to get help. November they found 1997. Tommy is the leader. He shares food and keeps the others calm. Lily draws pictures to decorate the walls. Marcus reads comics to the younger ones. They're adapting well. November 15, 1997. The investigation is getting too close. FBI agents asked my neighbors about the tunnel entrances. Dale says we need to disappear soon. December 10th, 1997. Dale died in car accident while running from police. Now it's just me. Can't risk keeping the children any longer. They know too much. They've seen too much. The final entries were the hardest to read. December 10th, 1997. It has to end tomorrow. I'll make it quick. They won't suffer. Then I'll leave town and start over somewhere else. December 3rd, 1997. It's done. The children were brave until the end, just like their bus driver said they would be. I'm sorry it had to happen this way. Leaving for Florida tonight. The final chamber. Beyond the living area there was one more room. The crime scene team hesitated before opening the door. Everyone knew what they would probably find. The room was small and dark, but it wasn't what they expected. Instead of remains, they found something that changed everything they thought they knew about the case. There was a hole in the back wall, a tunnel that wasn't on any blueprint, a tunnel that led somewhere, and carved into the stone beside the tunnel entrance, in Marcus's careful handwriting, was a message that made Ezra's heart race. Tommy helped me escape through the air vent. Going to get help. If you find this, look for us at the old water tower on Elm Street. M.W. Agent Torres shined his flashlight through the hole in the wall. The tunnel beyond was narrow, like a ventilation shaft. Too small for an adult, but just big enough for a child to crawl through. Marcus Webb escaped, Agent Torres said, in amazement. He got out. But if Marcus had escaped 27 years ago, where was he now? Why hadn't he told anyone about the underground prison? Why hadn't he led police back to save his friends? The water tower on Elm Street, Detective Santos said. That's where the first bus stop was supposed to be, where Mrs. Henderson was waiting for her daughter. Ezra looked at the tunnel entrance, then at Morrison's journal, then at the messages on the walls. The children had survived for 43 days. Mrs. Chen had died protecting them. Tommy had sacrificed his own escape to help Marcus get through the ventilation shaft. And somewhere out there Marcus Webb was still alive. He had been alive for 27 years, carrying the secret of what had happened to his friends. But why hadn't he ever told anyone? We need to find Marcus Webb, Agent Torres said. He's the only living witness to what happened down here. Ezra looked around the underground chamber one more time. At the children's drawings on the walls, at the calendar that stopped at day 43, at the tunnel that led to freedom for one boy who had lived with this secret for 27 years. He's probably been trying to tell people, Ezra said quietly. We just weren't listening. Agent Torres was already on his phone, calling the FBI database team. I need you to search for any Marcus Webb, male, born around 1986, anywhere in the United States, he said. Start with missing persons reports, then expand to social security records, employment records, anything. While they waited for results, Detective Santos organized a search of the old water tower on Elm Street. If Marcus had really escaped there 27 years ago, maybe they would find more clues. But Ezra couldn't stop thinking about the message carved in the wall. Marcus had escaped on December 3rd, the same day Morrison had written in his journal that it's done. What if Marcus had escaped, but he was too late to save his friends? What if he had been carrying that guilt for 27 years? The search for Marcus. The old water tower on Elm Street was abandoned now. It had been built in the 1950s, but stopped being used when the town built a new water treatment plant in the 90s. The search team found the tower surrounded by overgrown weeds and no trespassing signs. But there was a small maintenance building at the base that looked like it had been used recently. Inside the building, they found evidence that someone had been living there, at least sometimes. A sleeping bag, canned food, a small camping stove, and most importantly, newspaper clippings. Hundreds of newspaper clippings about the missing school bus. Every article, every anniversary story, every interview with grieving families. They were organized by date and stored in plastic bags to protect them from moisture. Someone's been following this case for 27 years, Detective Santos said. Jenny picked up one of the newspaper clippings. It was from October 15th, 2015, the 18th anniversary. In the margin, someone had written in pencil, "I'm sorry I couldn't save you." "This has to be Marcus," she said. The database results. Agent Torres's phone rang with results from the FBI database search. "We found 3 possible matches for Marcus Webb," the analyst told him. "One died in 2003. One is currently in prison in Texas. But the third one is interesting." "What do you mean interesting?" "There's a Michael Wilson, age 38, who's been working as a groundskeeper at various cemeteries and memorial sites across the state for the past 15 years. His social security number was issued in 2000, when he would have been about 13 years old. No birth certificate on file, no family records. Like he didn't exist before." Agent Torres felt his heart racing. "Where is he now?" According to his last employment record, he works at Peaceful Gardens Cemetery about 50 miles north of Maple Ridge. But here's the strange part. He's taken vacation time every October for the past 7 years. Always the same 2 weeks. October 10th through the anniversary weeks. Marcus, or Michael Wilson, had been coming back to Maple Ridge every year around the anniversary of the disappearance. "We need to find him," Agent Torres said. The groundskeeper's secret. Peaceful Garden Cemetery was a quiet place with rolling hills and old oak trees. The manager, Mrs. Foster, was surprised when FBI agents showed up asking about Michael Wilson. "Michael? He's our best employee," she said. "Quiet, hard-working, never causes any trouble. He especially takes good care of the children's graves." "What do you mean?" Detective Santos asked. "We have a section for children who died young. Michael always volunteers to maintain that area. He plants flowers, cleans the headstones, makes sure everything looks perfect. Some of the families have asked specifically for him to take care of their children's graves." Mrs. Foster showed them Michael's employee records. He had worked at 4 different cemeteries over the years, always in the children's sections, always taking care of graves of kids who had died too young. "Does he ever talk about his past?" Agent Torres asked. "Not really. He said he grew up in foster care, said he understood what it felt like to lose family." Foster care. That made sense. If 11-year-old Marcus Webb had escaped from Morrison's underground prison in 1997, traumatized and alone, he probably would have ended up in the foster care system, especially if he was too scared or damaged to tell anyone what had really happened. "Is Michael working today?" Detective Santos asked. Mrs. Foster looked at the schedule. "No, he started his vacation yesterday, same as every year. He'll be gone for 2 weeks." But they knew where he had gone. Back to Maple Ridge. Back to the place where his childhood had ended and his friends had died. Following the trail, the team returned to Maple Ridge and began searching for any sign of Michael Wilson. They checked hotels, motels, campgrounds, anywhere a man might stay for 2 weeks. But Ezra had a different idea. "He's not staying in a hotel," Ezra told Agent Torres. "He's staying somewhere that means something to him, somewhere connected to the children." They went back to the water tower on Elm Street. This time, they waited and watched. At sunset, a man approached the maintenance building. He was tall and thin, with dark hair and careful, quiet movements. He carried a backpack and walked like someone who didn't want to be noticed. Marcus Webb, now 38 years old but still carrying the weight of what had happened when he was 11. Agent Torres and Detective Santos approached carefully. They didn't want to scare him away. "Marcus," Agent Torres called softly. The man stopped walking. His shoulders tensed, but he didn't run. "My name is Kevin Torres. I'm with the FBI. I investigated your disappearance 27 years ago." Marcus turned around slowly. His face was older, weathered, but his eyes were the same frightened eyes that had looked out from his school photograph in night. "I know who you are," Marcus said quietly. "I've been waiting for someone to find me." Marcus's story. They sat in the maintenance building surrounded by Marcus's newspaper clippings. In the fading light, Marcus Webb told his story for the first time in 27 years. "I remember everything," he said. "The man who came to the school that day, Dale Kramer. He worked for Morrison but pretended to be a substitute maintenance worker." Marcus's voice was calm, but his hands shook as he talked. "He told us there was a problem with our bus, that we needed to wait inside while it was being fixed. Mrs. Chen was worried, but she trusted him because he had official school clothes on." "What happened next?" Detective Santos asked gently. "He led us through the maintenance building to the tunnel entrance. He said it was a shortcut to where the bus was being repaired. Mrs. Chen didn't want to go, but he said it was an emergency." Marcus looked down at his hands. "We trusted him because we were kids. Kids trust adults who act like they're trying to help." The underground prison had been exactly as they found it. Morrison had kept the children alive for weeks, bringing them food and water, telling them their families thought they were dead. He said the whole world had given up looking for us. Marcus continued. "He said we were his special children now, and he would take care of us forever. Mrs. Chen had tried to protect them until the end. She created games to keep the children's spirits up. She told them stories. She made them believe they were brave explorers on an adventure, not prisoners in a dungeon. She died trying to fight him," Marcus said, tears in his eyes. "Morrison hit her with a pipe when she tried to stop him from when she tried to protect her. After Mrs. Chen died, the older children took care of the younger ones. Tommy shared his food. Lily drew butterflies on the walls to make the dark place more beautiful. Marcus read comic books out loud to keep everyone entertained. But on December 3rd, Morrison told them it was time to go to sleep forever. Tommy knew what he meant," Marcus said. "Tommy was smart. He helped me find the air vent in the back wall. It was too small for him, but I was skinny. I could Tommy had boosted Marcus up to the ventilation shaft. Their last conversation was a whisper in the dark. "Tell my mom and dad I was brave," Tommy had said. "Tell Lily her butterflies will fly free someday. And Marcus, you have to live for all of us now." 27 years of guilt. Marcus crawled through the ventilation system for hours before he found an exit that led to the surface. He came out near the water tower, cold and terrified and alone. But he was too late. When he tried to go back and get help, he could hear Morrison's voice echoing through the tunnels. Then silence. "I was 11 years old and nobody would believe me," Marcus said. "I tried to tell the police, but I was just a traumatized kid who had been missing for 6 weeks. They thought I was making up stories because of shock." The foster care system moved Marcus from home to home. He had nightmares and behavior problems. Social workers said he had adjustment issues and difficulty distinguishing reality from fantasy. "Every time I tried to tell someone about the tunnels, about Morrison, about my friends, they gave me more therapy and more medication," Marcus said. When Marcus turned 18, he legally changed his name to Michael Wilson and disappeared into the world of quiet, invisible jobs. Cemeteries, memorial gardens, places where he could take care of children who had died too young, trying to make up for the friends he couldn't save. "I've been coming back here every October for 7 years," Marcus said, trying to find a way to tell the truth, leaving clues, hoping someone would figure it out. Agent Torres felt sick with guilt. "Marcus, we should have believed you. We should have listened. You couldn't have known," Marcus said. "I was just a scared kid with a crazy story. But now maybe people will finally believe." He looked at the newspaper clippings that surrounded them. "I kept every article about my friends, every anniversary story, every time their families asked for help. I wanted to tell them what really happened, but I was afraid they'd think I was lying, or worse, that they'd blame me for surviving when their children didn't. Detective Santos leaned forward. Marcus, we found the underground chambers. We found Morrison's journal. We know you're telling the truth. And we know you're a hero for trying to save them. Marcus shook his head. I'm not a hero. Tommy was the hero. He gave up his chance to escape so I could get through the air vent. Lily was the hero. She kept everyone's spirits up with her drawings. Mrs. Chen was the hero. She died protecting us. You survived, Ezra said quietly. That makes you a hero too. And now you can help us give their families the truth they've been waiting for. For the first time in 27 years. Marcus Webb smiled. But his smile was sad and tired. Like someone who had been carrying a heavy backpack for too long and finally got to set it down. What happens now? Marcus asked Agent Torres. Now we finish this, Agent Torres replied. We find Harrison Morrison and make sure he pays for what he did. And we help the families understand what really happened to their children. Marcus nodded slowly. The families deserve to know the truth. They've waited long enough. Detective Santos put her hand on Marcus's shoulder. Marcus, are you ready to go back down there, to the underground chambers? We need you to show us exactly what happened. It might be hard, but it could help us find Morrison. Marcus looked toward the direction of Riverside Memorial Park, where the entrance to his childhood nightmare was hidden beneath the peaceful gardens. I've been going back down there every October for 7 years, he said quietly. I've been leaving flowers for my friends. I've been telling them I'm sorry I couldn't save them. You have nothing to be sorry for, Ezra said firmly. You were 11 years old. You did everything you could. Return to the chambers. The next morning, Marcus led the investigation team back through the tunnels to Morrison's underground chambers. This time, he showed them things they had missed before. In the room where the children had been kept, Marcus pointed to a loose stone in the wall. Tommy hid things here, he said. He said if anyone ever found us, they would need to know we tried to escape. Behind the stone, they found a small metal box. Inside were items that told the story of the children's final weeks. A piece of paper with escape plans drawn in Tommy's careful handwriting. A friendship bracelet that Lily had made from threads pulled from her sweater. A letter that Marcus had written to his grandmother Eleanor, telling her he loved her and wasn't afraid. But most important was Tommy's final message, written on a scrap of paper torn from Lily's notebook. If someone finds this, we want our families to know we were brave. Lily drew beautiful pictures even in the dark. Marcus read us comic books about heroes. Mrs. Chen sang us songs and told us we were going to be okay. We took care of each other. We were not alone. Tommy Vasquez, December. Agent Torres carefully placed Tommy's letter in an evidence bag. These weren't just clues anymore. They were final gifts from children who knew they were going to die, but wanted their families to be proud of them. There's one more thing, Marcus said. He led them to the narrow ventilation shaft where he had escaped. I want to show you something Tommy did before the end. Marcus climbed up to the air vent, just like he had 27 years ago, but now he was an adult and he barely fit. As an 11-year-old, the escape had been difficult but possible. Tommy could have fit through here, Marcus said from inside the shaft. He was smaller than me, but he boosted me up instead of going himself. Why? Detective Santos asked. Marcus's voice echoed from the metal shaft. Because he said I was faster. He said I had a better chance of getting help. But really, I think Tommy knew one of us had to survive to tell the story. He chose me to be the one who lived. The search for Morrison. While Marcus showed them the underground chambers, Agent Torres had other FBI agents tracking down Harrison Morrison. The search was easier than expected. Morrison had never really been hiding. He had been living under his real name in a retirement community in Florida for the past 20 years. He's 81 years old now, Agent Torres told the team. Living in a nice apartment, playing golf, acting like a normal grandfather, but he never had children of his own. Never married after he left Maple Ridge. The arrest warrant was signed by a federal judge within hours. The charges were 24 counts of kidnapping and 24 counts of murder. Are you going to arrest him yourself? Detective Santos asked Agent Torres. I've been waiting 27 years for this, Agent Torres replied. Yes, I'm going to arrest him myself. Confronting the past. Before Agent Torres left for Florida, Marcus asked for one more favor. I want to visit the families, Marcus said. I want to tell them personally what happened to their children. They deserve to hear it from me. It was the hardest thing Marcus had ever had to do, but he knew Tommy would have wanted him to be brave. The first visit was to Maria Vasquez in Phoenix. She was 68 now, with gray hair and sad eyes. When Marcus introduced himself, she stared at him for a long moment. You're Marcus Webb, she said finally. You were on the bus with my Tommy. Yes, ma'am. Maria invited him into her living room. On the mantel were pictures of Tommy at every age, from baby photos to his last school picture. In the corner sat a bicycle that had never been ridden. Tell me about my son, Maria said. Marcus told her everything. How Tommy had shared his food with the younger children, how he had organized games to keep everyone's spirits up, how he had made the final sacrifice to help Marcus escape. Tommy saved my life, Marcus said. He told me to tell you and Mr. Carlos that he was brave. He told me to tell you he loved you. Maria cried, but they were different tears than she had shed for 27 years. These were tears of pride mixed with grief. My Tommy was a hero, she said. Yes, Mum. He was the best person I've ever known. Rebecca's butterflies. The visit to Rebecca Morganson was just as emotional. Rebecca was 62 now, but she had kept Lily's room exactly the same for 27 years. She showed Marcus the purple butterfly drawing that Lily had left on the kitchen table the morning she disappeared. She drew this for me the day before, Rebecca said. She always drew me pictures. Marcus told Rebecca about Lily's butterflies in the underground chamber, how she had drawn them on the walls to make the dark place more beautiful, how she had shared her crayons with the other children, how she had never stopped believing that butterflies could find their way to the light. Lily said butterflies start in dark places but always find the light, Marcus told Rebecca. She said that's what we were going to do too. Rebecca touched the faded drawing with trembling fingers. She was right. You found the light, Marcus. You became her butterfly. Eleanor's memory. The visit to Eleanor Webb's grave was the hardest of all. Marcus knelt beside his grandmother's headstone in the Maple Ridge Cemetery. Eleanor had died in 2005, never knowing what had happened to her grandson. I'm sorry I couldn't come home, Grandma, Marcus whispered to the stone. I'm sorry I let you worry for all those years. Ezra and Jenny had come with Marcus to the cemetery. They stood quietly while Marcus said goodbye to the woman who had raised him. She loved you very much, Ezra told Marcus. She never gave up hope that you would come home. I know, Marcus said. That's why I couldn't tell anyone the truth. I was afraid if people knew I was alive, they'd stop looking for the other children. I was afraid everyone would forget about Lily and Tommy. Marcus placed a Superman comic book on Eleanor's grave. She used to read these to me when I was little. She said, heroes always do the right thing, even when it's scary. You did the right thing, Jenny said softly. You survived. You kept their memory alive. You made sure they were never forgotten. The arrest. That afternoon, Agent Torres called from Florida. We got him, he said. Harrison Morrison is under arrest. Morrison had been living in the Golden Years retirement community in Tampa, Florida. He had been there for 15 years, playing bridge with other retirees, volunteering at local charity events, pretending to be a harmless old man. When Agent Torres showed his badge at Morrison's apartment door, Morrison's face went white. "I've been expecting you," Morrison said quietly. "Harrison Morrison, you are under arrest for the kidnapping and murder of 23 children and 1 adult in Maple Ridge." As Agent Torres read Morrison his rights, the old man looked smaller and frailer than the wealthy businessman who had terrorized children 27 years ago. "How did you find me?" Morrison asked as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "Marcus Webb," Agent Torres said. "The boy who got away. The boy whose friends you murdered. He never forgot, and he never gave up." Morrison's face crumpled. "Marcus is alive. He's alive, and he's going to testify against you. And the families of those children are going to watch you go to prison for the rest of your life." For the first time in 27 years, Harrison Morrison looked afraid. Coming home. That evening, Marcus stood in Riverside Memorial Park as the sun set over the peaceful gardens. Below his feet were the chambers where his childhood had ended and his friends had died. But above ground, families came to remember loved ones. Children played on swings. People found comfort in the beautiful, quiet place. Marcus had spent 27 years thinking he was a coward for surviving. But now he understood what Tommy had really given him. Not just life, but purpose. Tommy had chosen Marcus to be the one who remembered. The one who made sure their story was told. The one who honored their memory by helping other people heal. "Thank you," Marcus whispered to the evening sky. "Thank you for choosing me to tell your story." For the first time since he was 11 years old, Marcus Webb felt like he was home. But the story wasn't over yet. The hardest part was still coming. Morrison's trial was scheduled to begin in 3 months. Marcus would have to testify in front of a courtroom full of people, telling his story to the world. The families would hear every terrible detail about their children's final week. And Marcus would have to face Harrison Morrison again. "Are you ready for this?" Agent Torres asked Marcus as they sat in the prosecutor's office. "I don't know if anyone could be ready for this," Marcus replied. "But Tommy told me to live for all of us. I think that means being brave enough to speak the truth, even when it hurts." The investigation continues. While they waited for the trial, the FBI crime scene team made one more discovery in Morrison's underground chambers. In a hidden compartment behind a loose brick, they found something that changed their understanding of what had happened in those final days. A second journal, not Morrison's journal, but one written by Tommy Vasquez. Tommy had kept a secret diary during their imprisonment, writing on pages torn from Lily's notebook. He had hidden it in the wall, hoping someone would find it someday. The diary revealed details that even Marcus hadn't known about their time underground. Day 15. Marcus had a nightmare again last night. I told him the story about Superman saving the world. Lily drew him a picture of Superman with a cape that looked like butterfly wings. That made him smile. Day 23. Mrs. Chen is getting weaker. She tries to hide it from us, but I can tell she's hurt. She still sings us songs every night. Tonight she sang "You Are My Sunshine." Lily fell asleep holding my hand. Day 31. The bad man brought us soup today. It tasted funny. Lily didn't eat hers. She gave it to little Amy Foster instead. Lily said butterflies don't need much food to fly. Day 38. Mrs. Chen died today. She told us we were the bravest children she ever knew. She said our families would be proud of us. I promised her I would take care of everyone. Day 41. Marcus found the air vent. It's too small for me, but he might fit. I'm going to help him escape. Someone needs to tell our families what happened. Someone needs to tell them we weren't scared at the end. The final entry was dated December. Day 43. Tomorrow, Marcus is going to try to escape. I gave him my lucky penny that Dad gave me. I told him to give it to Mom and tell her I was thinking about her. Marcus is scared, but he's brave. He's going to be a real hero, just like in his comic books. If anyone reads this someday, please tell my mom and dad that I love them. Tell them I was brave just like they taught me to be. Tommy's legacy. The prosecutor, District Attorney Sarah Williams, read Tommy's diary entries out loud to Marcus, Agent Torres, and Detective Santos. "This changes everything," she said. "Tommy wasn't just trying to survive, he was taking care of everyone else. He was being a leader." Marcus wiped tears from his eyes. Tommy was always like that. Even in normal times at school, he helped kids who were getting picked on. He shared his lunch with kids who forgot theirs, and he chose to save you instead of himself. Detective Santos added, "I think Tommy knew something I didn't understand until now," Marcus said slowly. "He knew that surviving wasn't about getting out alive. It was about making sure the story got told, making sure people remembered." Agent Torres looked at the diary pages. Tommy was 11 years old, but he understood something that most adults never figure out. Real heroes don't just save themselves, they save the memory of everyone they couldn't help. The hidden truth about Mrs. Chen. Tommy's diary also revealed new information about Mrs. Chen's final days. The coroner's report had shown that Mrs. Chen had died from head trauma. But Tommy's diary explained what really happened. Day 35. Mrs. Chen tried to stop the bad man when he wanted to hurt Lily. He hit her with a metal pipe. She fell down and didn't get up for a long time. When she woke up, she couldn't remember things very well, but she still sang to us. Mrs. Chen had lived for several more days after Morrison attacked her, but she had been badly injured. She had used her final strength to comfort the children, singing lullabies and telling them stories even while she was dying. "She was a hero too," Marcus said. "She never stopped trying to protect us." The FBI team had also found evidence that Mrs. Chen had tried to mark a trail for rescuers. She had torn small pieces of fabric from a bus driver uniform and hidden them in the tunnels, hoping someone might follow the path back to the children. "She never gave up," Agent Torres said. "Even when she was dying, she was still trying to save you." The families learned the truth. Before the trial began, Marcus asked to meet with all the families together. He wanted them to hear the complete truth about their children's final weeks. The meeting was held in the Maple Ridge Community Center. 27 years after the disappearance, the parents who were still alive came to finally learn what had happened to their children. Rebecca Morganson was there, now gray-haired but still hoping for answers about Lily. Maria Vasquez had flown in from Phoenix, carrying the purple butterfly drawing that Lily had made for her mother. The Patterson family came to learn about their daughter Emma, who had been 7 years old. The Kowalski family wanted to know about their son David, who had loved baseball cards. 12 families in total. Some parents had died over the years, but siblings and grandparents came to represent the children who never came home. Marcus stood at the front of the room, more nervous than he had ever been in his life. "My name is Marcus Webb," he began. 27 years ago, I was 11 years old and I rode bus 47 with your children. I'm here to tell you what happened to them and to tell you how brave they were." For 2 hours, Marcus told the complete story. The fake emergency that led them into the tunnels, Mrs. Chen's protection and sacrifice, the way the children took care of each other during their imprisonment. He read passages from Tommy's diary. He described Lily's butterfly drawings on the underground walls. He told them about the games the children played to stay hopeful, and the songs Mrs. Chen sang to help them sleep. But most importantly, he told them about the love. "Your children loved you," Marcus said. "Even in the darkest place, surrounded by fear, they talked about you every day." Tommy told us stories about helping his dad at the restaurant. Lily drew pictures that she said were going to be presents for her mom. Emma sang the lullaby her grandmother taught her. They never gave up believing that someone would find them. They never stopped hoping they would see you again. And in their final days, they weren't thinking about being scared. They were thinking about making you proud. Rebecca Morganson stood up from her chair. Marcus, was Lily? Was she happy, even in that terrible place? Marcus smiled through his tears. Mrs. Morganson, Lily was the reason the rest of us could be happy. Every time someone felt sad, Lily would draw them a butterfly. She said butterflies proved that beautiful things could come from dark places. She said that's what we were going to do too. Maria Vasquez raised her hand. What about Tommy? Was he afraid? Mrs. Vasquez, Tommy was the bravest person I've ever known. He took care of everyone. He shared his food even when he was hungry. He told jokes when we were scared. And in the end, he gave me his lucky penny and told me to tell you he was thinking about you. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn penny. He wanted you to have this back. Maria Vasquez took the penny with shaking hands. It was the same penny Carlos had given Tommy for luck on his first day of kindergarten. My boy, she whispered. My brave, beautiful boy. Understanding the heroes. After the meeting, as families hugged and cried and shared memories, Ezra approached Marcus. You know what I've learned from all this? Ezra said. What's that? I spent 27 years thinking I failed those children because I didn't notice something was wrong. But the truth is, the children didn't fail. Mrs. Chen didn't fail. Tommy didn't fail. And you didn't fail. Ezra looked around the community center at the families comforting each other. The only person who failed was Morrison. Everyone else, the children, Mrs. Chen, you, the families who never gave up hope, the investigators who kept working, everyone else was a hero. Marcus nodded slowly. Tommy used to say that heroes aren't people who never get scared. Heroes are people who do the right thing even when they are scared. Then you've been a hero for 27 years, Ezra said. You survived. You remembered. You honored their memory. And you made sure their families finally got the truth. Jenny Holloway joined the conversation. Marcus, what are you going to do after the trial? Marcus looked around the room at the families who were finding comfort in each other's stories. I think I want to come home, he said. I think I want to help other families who have missing children. I want to make sure no one has to wait 27 years for answers. I think Tommy would like that, Jenny said. I think he would too, Marcus agreed. I think he would say, I finally learned what it really means to be a hero. 3 months later, Harrison Morrison's trial began in the Maple Ridge County Courthouse. It was the biggest trial the small town had ever seen. News reporters came from all over the country. The courthouse was packed every day with families, investigators, and people who remembered the missing children. Marcus had spent weeks preparing for this moment. He would be the star witness, the only person who could tell the court exactly what had happened in Morrison's underground prison. Are you ready? District Attorney Sarah Williams asked Marcus on the morning of his testimony. Marcus looked at the courthouse steps, where Rebecca Morganson and Maria Vasquez were holding hands, waiting to finally see justice for their children. I'm ready, Marcus said. Tommy told me to be brave. I'm going to be brave for him. Facing the monster. The courtroom was completely silent when Marcus walked to the witness stand. Harrison Morrison sat at the defendant's table, now 81 years old and looking frail in his orange jail uniform. For the first time in 27 years, Marcus looked directly at the man who had destroyed his childhood. Morrison looked smaller and weaker than Marcus remembered, but his eyes were the same cold, calculating eyes that had stared at 11-year-old Marcus in the underground chamber. State your name for the record, District Attorney Williams. Marcus Webb. But I've been living as Michael Wilson for the past 27 years. Mr. Webb, do you see the man who kidnapped you and your classmates in this courtroom today? Marcus pointed directly at Morrison. Yes, that's him. That's Harrison Morrison. Morrison stared back at Marcus, but for the first time, He was the one who looked afraid. Telling the truth. For 4 hours, Marcus told the complete story of October 15, 1997, and the 43 days that followed. He described how Morrison's assistant, Dale Kramer, had pretended to be a maintenance worker and led the children into the underground tunnels. He explained how Morrison had kept them prisoner, telling them their families had given up looking for them. He talked about Mrs. Chen's bravery and sacrifice, fighting to protect the children until her death. He read passages from Tommy's diary, showing how the children had taken care of each other even in their darkest moments. Tommy Vasquez saved my life, Marcus told the jury. He could have escaped through the air vent himself, but he helped me instead. His last words to me were, "Live for all of us now." I've spent 27 years trying to honor that request. The jury listened to every word. Some of them were crying. The judge had to call for breaks when family members became too emotional to continue. But Marcus never stopped talking. He owed it to Tommy and Lily and all the other children to tell their complete story. Morrison's defense. Harrison Morrison's lawyer tried to make excuses for his client. Mr. Morrison is an old man with mental health issues, the defense attorney argued. He was not in his right mind 27 years ago. But the prosecutor had Morrison's own journal, written in his clear handwriting, showing that he had planned every detail of the kidnapping. This was not the act of a confused man, District Attorney Williams told the jury. This was the calculated plan of a predator who spent months preparing to steal these children from their families. The defense lawyer also tried to attack Marcus's credibility. Mr. Webb disappeared for 27 years, the lawyer said. How do we know his memory is accurate? How do we know he's telling the truth about what happened? But Agent Torres testified about all the evidence they had found in the underground chambers. Tommy's diary, Lily's drawings, Mrs. Chen's final note. Physical evidence that proved every detail of Marcus's story. Marcus Webb is not just a witness, Agent Torres told the jury. He's a survivor who preserved the truth for 27 years so that justice could finally be served. The families speak. On the final day of testimony, the families of the missing children were allowed to speak directly to the court. Rebecca Morganson stood at the podium holding the purple butterfly drawing that Lily had made the day before she disappeared. My daughter was 8 years old, Rebecca said, her voice strong and clear. She loved drawing butterflies because she said they proved that beautiful things could come from dark places. Harrison Morrison tried to put my daughter in the darkest place possible, but even there she created beauty. Even there she helped other children feel hope. Rebecca looked directly at Morrison. You tried to destroy these children, but you failed. Their love and bravery survived. Their memories survived. And now the truth has survived too. Maria Vasquez spoke next, holding Tommy's lucky penny. My son died trying to save his friend, Maria said. Tommy was 9 years old, and he understood something that you, Mr. Morrison, will never understand. He understood that real strength comes from helping others, not hurting them. Maria's voice grew stronger as she continued. You kept my son underground for 43 days, but you could not keep his spirit in the darkness. Tommy's light shines on through Marcus, through the families you couldn't break, and through the justice we're finally getting today. One by one, 12 families spoke about their lost children. They talked about birthdays that were never celebrated, graduations that never happened, grandchildren who were never born. But they also talked about love that never died, memories that never faded, and hope that survived even 27 years of silence. Morrison's final moment. When it was Harrison Morrison's turn to speak, he stood up slowly, his hands were shaking, and he looked older than his 81 years. Morrison started, then stopped. He looked around the courtroom at all the families staring at him. I know you want me to say I'm sorry, Morrison said finally, but I don't think sorry is big enough for what I did. Morrison looked at Marcus, who was sitting in the front row next to Agent Torres. "You were supposed to die with the others," Morrison said to Marcus. "I never planned for a survivor. I never planned for someone to remember." "That's because you never understood what Tommy understood," Marcus replied, standing up. "You thought taking our bodies would take our story, but Tommy made sure the story survived. Mrs. Chen made sure the love survived. The families made sure the hope survived." Morrison sat down heavily. For the first time in his life, he had nothing more to say. The verdict. The jury took only 3 hours to reach their verdict. On the count of kidnapping in the first degree, we find the defendant Harrison Morrison guilty. On the count of murder in the first degree for Delili Chen, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of murder in the first degree for 23 counts involving the deaths of the children, we find the defendant guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted in cheers and tears. Families hugged each other. Agent Torres shook hands with Detective Santos. Ezra put his arm around Jenny. Marcus sat quietly, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders that he had been carrying for 27 years. Justice hadn't brought the children back. It hadn't erased the pain of their families, but it had proven that their lives mattered. Their story mattered, and their memory would never be forgotten. The sentence. Judge Patricia Coleman looked down at Harrison Morrison with disgust. "Mr. Morrison, you have been found guilty of 24 counts of murder and 24 counts of kidnapping. These were not crimes of passion or accidents of poor judgment. These were the calculated acts of a predator who stole the lives of innocent children and the woman who tried to protect them." Judge Coleman paused, looking at the families in the courtroom. "The families of these victims have shown more grace and strength than you deserve. They have waited 27 years for justice, and they have never stopped believing in the goodness of their children." She turned back to Morrison. "I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole on each count, to be served consecutively. You will spend the rest of your life behind bars, and you will never again have the opportunity to hurt a child." Morrison was led away in handcuffs. He never looked back at the families or at Marcus. After the trial, outside the courthouse, Marcus was surrounded by reporters asking for interviews, but he only wanted to talk to the families. "What's next for you, Marcus?" Rebecca Morganson asked. "I'm going to do what Tommy told me to do," Marcus said. "I'm going to live for all of them. I'm going to help other families find their missing children. I'm going to make sure no one else has to wait 27 years for answers." Agent Torres approached Marcus with an offer. "The FBI could use someone like you," Agent Torres said. "Someone who understands what families go through, someone who never gives up hope. Are you interested in helping us find other missing children?" Marcus looked around at the families who had become like his own family over the past months. He thought about Tommy's words, "Live for all of us now." "Yes," Marcus said. "I think Tommy would like that. I think he would say that's what heroes do." As the sun set over Maple Ridge, Marcus Webb walked away from the courthouse as a free man. Not free from his memories, but free from his guilt. Not free from his past, but free to build a future that honored his friends. For the first time in 27 years, Marcus wasn't running from his story. He was ready to help other people write better endings to theirs. 6 months after Morrison's trial, Marcus stood in an empty lot where Maple Ridge Elementary School used to be. The shopping center had been torn down after the trial. Too many people couldn't bear to shop where children had once played. Now the lot was empty again, covered with weeds and broken concrete. But Marcus had a vision for what it could become. "Are you sure about this?" Agent Torres asked. He had driven up from the city to meet with Marcus about his new job with the FBI. "This is a big project." Marcus looked at the architectural plans spread out on the hood of his truck. "I've been saving money for 15 years, working at all those cemeteries. I never spent it on anything because I deserved to be happy. But now I know what the money was really for." The plans showed a beautiful memorial garden, not sad and dark like a cemetery, but bright and full of life. There would be butterfly gardens for Lily, playground equipment for Tommy's love of helping younger children, reading areas with comic books like Marcus had enjoyed, and 23 trees, one for each lost child. The Lily, Tommy and Friends Memorial Garden. Marcus read from the title on the plans. A place for families of missing children to find peace and hope. Building something beautiful. The town of Maple Ridge rallied around Marcus's project like nothing they had ever seen before. Rebecca Morganson, now 63, quit her job at the grocery store to help plan the garden full-time. Lily would have loved this, Rebecca said as she looked at the butterfly garden plans. She always said butterflies proved that beautiful things could come from dark places. Maria Vasquez moved back to Maple Ridge from Phoenix to help with the project. She had been lonely in Arizona, far from the place where Tommy had lived and played. "I want to be near my son's memory," Maria told Marcus. "I want to help other families the way you helped me." Even Jenny Holloway quit her computer programming job in Seattle and moved back home. For the first time since she was 8 years old, she felt like she had a purpose. "I survived that day for a reason," Jenny told her father Ezra. "Maybe this is the reason." Community support. The local newspaper, the Maple Ridge Gazette, ran a story about Marcus's garden project. Within a week, donations started pouring in from across the country. A construction company from the next town over volunteered to do all the work for free. A landscaping business donated hundreds of flowers and trees. The high school art class offered to paint a mural showing butterflies flying free. But the most meaningful donations came from other families who had lost children. A mother from California sent a check with a note, "My daughter disappeared 5 years ago. We still don't know what happened to her. Thank you for showing us that love survives even when our children can't come home." A father from Texas wrote, "My son has been missing for 10 years. Reading about Tommy's bravery gives me hope that wherever my boy is, he's being brave too." Letters and donations came from all 50 states. Families who understood what it meant to wait for answers that might never come. The design. Marcus worked with a landscape architect named Sarah Chen, no relation to Mrs. Delilah Chen, but she had grown up hearing the story of the missing bus driver who died protecting children. "I want this garden to tell their story," Marcus explained to Sarah. "Not just that they died, but how they lived. How they loved each other. How they were brave." The garden's design was like a story that visitors could walk through. The entrance had a bronze statue of Mrs. Chen, reading to children. Round the base were the words she had written in her final note. "I told them they were heroes." The main path led to Lily's butterfly garden, filled with flowers that attracted monarch butterflies, purple flowers, Lily's favorite color. In the center was a bench where people could sit and watch the butterflies. Tommy's area had playground equipment and picnic tables where families could share meals together, just like Tommy had shared his lunch with classmates who had forgotten theirs. Marcus's section had a reading circle with comic book displays and comfortable chairs. But the comic books weren't just for entertainment. They were stories about real heroes who helped other people. Special features. The garden included special features to help families of missing children. There was a hope wall where people could hang pictures of missing loved ones and write messages. There was a memory tree where families could hang ornaments with their children's names. There was a butterfly release area where people could let butterflies go free on special anniversaries, watching them fly toward the sky. But the most important feature was the family center, a small building where counselors would be available to help families cope with having a missing child. "Too many families suffer alone," Marcus told the garden planning committee. "I don't want anyone to wait 27 years for help the way I did." The family center would offer support groups, therapy sessions, and help navigating police investigations. It would be staffed by people who understood what families were going through. Marcus had asked Agent Torres to help design the center's programs. "We're going to teach families how to work with police," Agent Torres explained. "How to keep their cases in the news. How to never give up hope, but also how to take care of themselves while they wait for answers." The grand opening. 1 year after Morrison's trial, the Lily, Tommy and Friends Memorial Garden was ready to open. The grand opening ceremony was held on October 15th, the anniversary of the day the children had disappeared. But instead of a day of sadness, it became a day of hope. Hundreds of people came to the opening ceremony, families from around the country who had missing children, police officers and FBI agents who worked on missing persons cases, teachers and school administrators who wanted to learn how to keep children safe. But most importantly, the people of Maple Ridge came to honor the children they had never forgotten. Rebecca Morganson and Maria Vasquez cut the ribbon together using scissors decorated with purple butterflies. "This garden isn't just about our children," Rebecca told the crowd. "It's about all the missing children. It's about the hope that love is stronger than loss." Marcus spoke to the gathering from the steps of the family center. 28 years ago, 23 children and their bus driver were taken from this very spot. Marcus said, "For 27 years I thought their story ended in darkness. But I was wrong." Marcus looked around at the beautiful garden full of flowers and families and hope. Their story didn't end in Morrison's underground prison. It continued in every person who never stopped looking for them. It continued in every family member who refused to give up hope. It continued in every police officer who kept working the case. Marcus paused, thinking about Tommy's final words to him. "Tommy told me to live for all of them. I thought that meant just surviving. But now I understand what he really meant. He meant to live in a way that honors their memory, to live in a way that helps other people, to live in a way that proves love is stronger than evil." The butterfly moment. As Marcus finished speaking, something magical happened. A cloud of monarch butterflies appeared over the garden. Hundreds of them, flying in formation like they were welcoming everyone to the new space. The crowd gasped and pointed at the sky. Children laughed and tried to catch the butterflies. Adults stood in amazement at the perfect timing. "Lily would say that's not a coincidence," Rebecca whispered to Maria. "She would say the butterflies came to tell us they made it to the light," Maria whispered back. Marcus looked up at the butterflies and smiled. For the first time since he was 11 years old, he felt like Tommy and Lily were proud of him. A new beginning. After the ceremony, Marcus walked through the garden with Agent Torres, Detective Santos, Ezra and Jenny. "So what's next?" Agent Torres asked. "I start work with the FBI next month," Marcus said. "Missing children cases. I'll help families understand the investigation process. I'll help agents understand what families are going through." "And the garden?" Detective Santos asked. "The garden will keep growing," Marcus said. "We already have requests from other towns to help them build similar gardens. Maybe someday there will be butterfly gardens like this all across the country." Jenny took her father's arm as they walked past the playground equipment. "Dad, I've been thinking about something," Jenny said to Ezra. "What's that?" "I want to become a teacher. Elementary school. I want to work with kids who are scared or sad, like Marcus was. Like I was." Ezra smiled at his daughter. "I think that's exactly what you're supposed to do." As the sun set over the garden, families continued to explore the different areas. Children played on Tommy's playground. Adults sat quietly in Lily's butterfly garden. Teenagers read comic books in Marcus's reading circle. The garden was already fulfilling its purpose, bringing people together, creating hope from sadness, proving that beautiful things really could grow from dark places. Marcus sat on a bench near the entrance, watching the families enjoy the space he had created. On the bench next to him was a plaque with words from Tommy's diary. "Heroes aren't people who never get scared. Heroes are people who do the right thing even when they are scared. For the first time in 28 years, Marcus Webb wasn't scared anymore. 1 year later, October 15th, the second annual Memorial Day, the Lily, Tommy and Friends Memorial Garden had become something even more beautiful than Marcus had dreamed. Families came from all over the country to visit. Some were looking for missing children. Others had found their children alive or dead and wanted to share hope with families still searching. Some just needed a place where people understood their pain. Marcus walked through the garden early that morning, before the memorial service began. He did this every day now, a quiet walk to check on everything and to say good morning to his friends. The butterfly garden was in full bloom. Purple flowers everywhere, just like Lily would have wanted. Monarch butterflies danced from flower to flower, and Marcus could almost hear Lily's voice saying, "See? They always find their way to the light." Tommy's playground was already busy with children playing. A group of kindergartners from the new Maple Ridge Elementary School was having a field trip. Their teacher was reading them a story about sharing and kindness, the same lessons Tommy had taught through his actions 28 years ago. The reading circle had teenagers sitting quietly with comic books. Some were reading Superman and Batman stories. Others were reading true stories about real heroes, police officers, firefighters, teachers and ordinary people who helped others when they were in trouble. Marcus's new life. Working with the FBI had given Marcus a sense of purpose he had never felt before. In the past year, he had helped solve 3 missing children cases. 3 families got to hug their children again, because Marcus understood both what the families were feeling and how investigations really work. "You have a gift," Agent Torres had told Marcus after they found a 6-year-old girl who had been taken by her non-custodial father. "You can talk to families in a way that other agents can't. You understand their fear, but you also give them hope." Marcus lived in a small apartment near the garden now. Every morning he walked through Lily's butterflies. Every evening he sat on Tommy's bench and read case files, looking for clues that other investigators might have missed. But the best part of his new life was the family center. The family center's impact. The family center had helped over 50 families in its first year. Support groups met twice a week. Counselors were available every day. And most importantly, families learned they weren't alone. Marcus ran a special group for parents who had been searching for more than 5 years. These were the families who understood what it meant to live with questions that might never be answered. "My daughter has been missing for 8 years, said Carol Martinez during one support group meeting. "I used to think that meant I was a failure as a mother. But listening to other families here, I've learned that love doesn't stop just because someone is missing. Love keeps going, and sometimes love is what brings our children home." The family center also trained police officers from around the country. They came to learn how to work better with families of missing children. "Families need information, even when we don't have answers," Marcus would tell the police training sessions. "They need to know that someone is still looking. They need to know that their child matters." Detective Santos had become the center's law enforcement coordinator. She helped families understand how investigations worked and taught police officers how to communicate with families who were scared and desperate. Marcus changed how I think about missing persons cases. Detective Santos told a group of visiting officers, "He showed me that every case is someone's whole world. Every missing child is someone's everything." The annual memorial service. At 3:47 p.m., the exact time Bus 47 had left Maple Ridge Elementary 28 years ago, hundreds of people gathered for the annual memorial service. Rebecca Morganson, now 64, had become the garden's volunteer coordinator. She organized events, welcomed new families, and helped maintain Lily's butterfly garden. "This garden saved my life," Rebecca told the crowd. "For 27 years, I was stuck in October 15, 1997. I couldn't move forward because I didn't know what had happened to my daughter. But now I know Lily's story. She was brave. She was kind. She helped other children feel hope even in the darkest place. I can live with that truth. Maria Vasquez had opened a small restaurant next to the garden called Tommy's Kitchen. She served free meals to families visiting the memorial and employed teenagers who needed part-time jobs, just like Tommy would have done. Tommy taught me that sharing food is sharing love, Maria said during her speech. Every family that comes here gets fed. Every child that needs help gets help. That's how we keep Tommy's spirit alive. The most emotional moment came when Ezra Holloway, now 95 years old, spoke to the crowd. I was the janitor who should have noticed something was wrong, Ezra said in a shaky but strong voice. For 27 years, I carried the guilt of missing the clues. But I've learned something important. Heroes aren't people who never make mistakes. Heroes are people who keep trying to do better. Ezra looked at Marcus, who was standing with a group of FBI agents who had come to honor the children. Marcus Webb is my hero, Ezra continued. Not because he survived, but because he turned his survival into service. He took his pain and made it into purpose. He proved that sometimes the worst things that happen to us can become the reason we help other people. The butterfly release. Every year the memorial service ended with a butterfly release. Families who had missing children would release monarch butterflies into the sky, watching them fly free as a symbol of hope. This year there was something special planned. Jenny Holloway, now a second-grade teacher, had brought her entire class to the ceremony. She had been teaching them about butterflies, about metamorphosis, about how creatures could transform from one thing into something completely different. Today we're going to release butterflies for children who can't be with their families, Jenny told her students. We're going to send them messages of love and hope. Each of Jenny's students had written a note to attach to their butterflies container. Dear missing children, we hope you find your way home. Dear lost kids, your families love you and miss you. Dear children in heaven, we will remember you. As the butterflies were released, they rose into the afternoon sky in a cloud of orange and black wings. The crowd watched in amazement as hundreds of butterflies spiraled upward, catching the sunlight like flying flowers. But the most amazing thing happened at exactly every year for the past 7 years. Wild monarch butterflies had appeared in the garden at exactly 3:47 p.m. on October 15th. Scientists said it was probably coincidence, migration patterns and weather conditions that happened to align with the memorial service. But the families knew better. Marcus's final speech. As the butterflies disappeared into the distance, Marcus spoke to the crowd one last time. 28 years ago, a school bus disappeared from this spot. Marcus began. For 27 years, people thought that was the end of the story, but it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Marcus looked around at the garden full of families, flowers, and hope. The beginning of families who refused to give up. The beginning of investigators who never stopped searching. The beginning of a community that turned tragedy into love. Marcus paused, thinking about Tommy's final words to him in the underground chamber. My friend Tommy told me to live for all of them. For 27 years, I thought that meant just surviving. But Tommy meant something bigger. He meant to live in a way that honors their memory. To live in a way that helps other people. To live in a way that proves love is stronger than evil. Marcus smiled at the crowd, no longer the scared 11-year-old who had crawled through a ventilation shaft to escape a monster. Some stories end with rescue. Some stories end with justice. But the best stories end with love that outlasts even the darkest places. As Marcus finished speaking, a single monarch butterfly landed on the podium next to him. It sat there for a moment, as if listening to his words, then flew up toward the sky. Rebecca Morganson wiped tears from her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Lily." Maria Vasquez clutched Tommy's lucky penny and whispered, "Thank you, my brave boy." And Marcus Webb looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you for choosing me to tell your story." The legacy continues. As the sun set over the Lily, Tommy and Friends Memorial Garden, families walked slowly through the paths, taking their time to visit each area. Children played on Tommy's playground while their parents talked with other families who understood their struggles. Teenagers read comic books in Marcus's reading circle, learning about heroes who helped other people. Adults sat quietly in Lily's butterfly garden, watching the monarchs dance among the purple flowers. The garden had become exactly what Marcus had hoped, a place where tragedy had been transformed into beauty, where families could find comfort, and where missing children were remembered not just for how they died, but for how they had lived and loved. In the family center, counselors were already meeting with new families who had just arrived, desperate for help finding their missing children. Tomorrow, Marcus would begin working on 3 new cases. Detective Santos would train more police officers. Jenny would teach more children about kindness and bravery. The work would continue. The hope would continue. The love would continue. And every October 15th at 3:47 p.m., the butterflies would return to remind everyone that beautiful things really can come from dark places, and that love really is stronger than anything that tries to destroy it. In the end, that was the true miracle of the Lily, Tommy and Friends Memorial Garden. It proved that sometimes the worst day of your life can become the reason for the best thing you ever do. And sometimes, if you're very lucky and very brave, you get to help other people write better endings to their stories too. Marcus Webb's story proves that even in the darkest places, love and hope can survive. 28 years later, the Lily, Tommy and Friends Memorial Garden stands as a reminder that heroes come in all forms. Sometimes they're 11-year-old boys who crawl through air vents, sometimes they're janitors who never give up, and sometimes they're families who turn their grief into helping others. We'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell us your city or country. Your support helps us share more stories of hope and kindness with people around the world. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. When you subscribe, you're helping us spread these messages of courage and compassion to others who might need to hear them. And speaking of inspiring stories, there's another incredible tale waiting for you right now. Click on the video appearing on your screen to discover another story of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Remember, sometimes the smallest act of noticing, caring, or speaking up can change everything. Thank you for listening, and keep spreading kindness wherever you go.